Today we come to 9.1.7. Once, when the Exalted One was staying near Rajagaha on Mount Vulture Peak, Suttavan, the wanderer, came and paid him a visit. After greeting the Exalted One and exchanging the usual complimentary speeches, he sat down at one side. So seated, he addressed the Exalted One thus. Now on one occasion, Lord, when the Exalted One was staying here at Rajagaha on Giribhaja, I heard this from the mouth of the Exalted One. From his own mouth I learnt it. The Arahant monk Suttavan, who has destroyed the asavas, lived the holy life, done what was to be done, laid down the burden, won to the goal, burst the bonds of becoming, and is freed by the fullness of knowledge, cannot transgress the 5 standards. A monk in whom the asavas are destroyed cannot deliberately take the life of any living thing, cannot with intention to steal take what is not given, cannot indulge in carnal intercourse, cannot intentionally tell a lie, cannot enjoy pleasures from savings as of before when a householder. Pray, Lord, have I heard the matter rightly from the Exalted One? Have I grasped it rightly? Have I borne it in mind rightly? Have I understood it rightly? And the Buddha said, Certainly, Suttavan, you have heard the matter rightly, grasped it rightly, borne it in mind rightly, and understood it rightly. Both in the past and now, Suttavan, I verily declare, the Arahant monk who has destroyed the asavas, lived the holy life, done what was to be done, laid down the burden, won to the goal, burst the bonds of becoming, and is freed by the fullness of knowledge, cannot transgress 9 standards. A monk in whom the asavas are destroyed cannot deliberately take the life of any living thing, cannot with intention to steal take what is not given, cannot indulge in carnal intercourse, cannot intentionally tell a lie, cannot enjoy pleasures from savings as of before when a householder. A monk in whom the asavas are destroyed cannot go astray through desire, cannot go astray through hate, cannot go astray through delusion, cannot go astray through fear. Both in the past and now, Suttavan, I verily declare, an Arahant monk who has lived the life, the holy life, done what was to be done, laid down the burden, won to the goal, burst the bonds of becoming, and is freed by the fullness of knowledge, cannot transgress these 9 standards. This is quite an interesting sutta. Here the Buddha is saying that Arahant monk, an enlightened person, cannot break these 9 standards. 1, he cannot intentionally kill. 2, he cannot intentionally steal. 3, he cannot indulge in sexual intercourse. 4, cannot tell a lie. 5, cannot save up something to use later, in other words, something, food or something, because he's not worried about whether he lives or not. And then after that, he cannot do something wrong because of desire or greed. He cannot do something wrong because of hatred. He cannot do something wrong because of delusion. And he cannot do something wrong because of fear. So these are the 9 standards to judge Arahant. And so this is from the earlier suttas, but sometimes if you're not careful, you'll read some later books, they may say something which is contrary to this. For example, they may claim that such and such a person is enlightened, yet he can break these precepts, then he cannot be an enlightened person if that is so. The next sutta is 9.1.9. Monks, these 9 persons are found living in the world. What 9? The Arahant, he who has entered on the path to Arahantship. The Anagamin or non-returner, he who has entered on the path to the realization of the fruit of the non-returner. The Sakadagamin or once returner, he who has entered on the path to the realization of the fruit of the once returner. The Sotapanna or stream winner, he who has entered on the path to the realization of the fruit of the stream winner. And the ordinary man, Putujana. Monks, these 9 persons are found living in the world. That's the end of the sutta. There's a few implications from this sutta. The fact that these 9 persons are found living in the world shows that path attainers are to be found in the world. That's why in some other sutta, in the Majjhima Nikaya, I think, it is mentioned that you can make an offering to a path attainer. So it is not that the path attainer exists for just one moment. He does exist. Another implication that can be drawn from here, you see here is mentioned the 8 Aryans plus the Putujana, that makes 9 persons. And it is not mentioned here about the Sammasambuddha and the Pacceka Buddha. So what is meant here is that the Sammasambuddha and the Pacceka Buddha, they are Arahants. In fact, in the suttas, you find that the Buddha calls himself the Arahant. And that term Arahant during the Buddha's time was not used for his disciples. The Buddha referred to his enlightened disciples as Aryan disciples. Aryan disciples who are liberated by wisdom or liberated by mind. So the Arahant includes the Arahant disciple, the Sammasambuddha and the Pacceka Buddha. Pacceka Buddha is the type of Buddha who does not teach the Dhamma to the world. Another thing you notice here is that the Bodhisattva is not mentioned here. But the Bodhisattva in our early suttas is either can be a Putujana, or he can be a Sotapanna, or he can be a Sakadagamin, stream winner or once returner, because a Bodhisattva comes back to the world. So he must be one of these 3, an ordinary person, a stream winner, or a once returner. And it's only the later books that say that the Bodhisattva must be a Putujana, but that is not seen in the suttas. The other thing here is that the terms Sotapanna, Sakadagamin, Anagamin and Arahant, they refer to the fruition attainers, not path attainers. Although the translation here in the book here, Book of the Kindred Gradual Sayings, they have translated it as though the Sotapanna, Sakadagamin, Anagamin and Arahant are path attainers. But check the Pali, they are actually fruition attainers. The next sutta is 9.1.10. Monks, these 9 persons are venerable, worthy of honor, worthy of gifts, worthy of salutations, the world's unsurpassed field for making merit. The Arahant, he who has entered on the path to Arahantship. The Anagamin or non-returner, he who has entered on the path to the realization of the fruit of the non-returner. The Sakadagamin or once returner, he who has entered on the path to the realization of the fruit of the once returner. The Sotapanna or stream winner, he who has entered on the path to the realization of the fruit of the stream winner. And he who has become one of the clan, Gotrabhu. Monks, these 9 persons are venerable, worthy of honor, worthy of gifts, worthy of salutations, the world's unsurpassed field for making merit. That's the end of the sutta. What is interesting about this sutta is that it mentions the 8 Aryans, plus a person called the Gotrabhu. Now, according to the commentary, the Gotrabhu is one endowed with exceedingly powerful insight and thought, with immediate prospects of attaining to the state of the stream winner and the way. Which means that the Gotrabhu, or one of the clan, is not an Aryan. He's not an Aryan, but he's very close to becoming a stream winner. He is fairly familiar with the suttas. So even that type of person is considered venerable, worthy of honor, worthy of gifts, worthy of salutations, the world's unsurpassed field for merit, for making merit. So these are the 9 persons who are described as such. The next sutta is 9.2.11. Once when the Exalted One was staying near Savatthi at Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's park, the Venerable Sariputta came and visited him, saluted and sat down at one side. So seated, the Venerable Sariputta said to the Exalted One, Lord, I have spent the rainy season here in Savatthi, and I now wish to go into the country. And the Buddha said, Now is the time, Sariputta, to do as you think fit. So the Venerable Sariputta got up, saluted, and took his departure, keeping the Exalted One on his right. Now not long after his departure, a certain monk addressed the Exalted One and said, Lord, the Venerable Sariputta has offended me, and without asking my pardon, has set out on a journey. And the Exalted One said to a monk, Go, monk, and in my name bid Sariputta come, saying, The teacher calls you, Sariputta. Yes, Lord, replied the monk, and he went and gave the Venerable Sariputta the Exalted One's message. Yes, Reverend Sir, he replied. Then, when the Venerable Mahamoggallana and the Venerable Ananda, with their keys from lodging to lodging, saying, Hasten you, Reverend Sirs, and come, for the Venerable Sariputta will now roar his lion's roar in the presence of the Exalted One. And the Venerable Sariputta went to the Exalted One and saluted him and sat down at one side. And the Exalted One said to him, There is here, Sariputta, a fellow wayfarer who has a grievance. He says, Lord, the Venerable Sariputta has offended me, and without asking my pardon has set out on a journey. And the Venerable Sariputta said, True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness of the body's actions is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer in the holy life whom he has offended. Lord, just as on the earth they cast things clean and foul, dung, urine, spittle, pus and blood, yet for all that the earth is not filled with horror, loathing. Even so, Lord, like the earth, I abide with mind, large, abundant, measureless, feeling no hatred nor ill will. True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer whom he had offended. Lord, just as in water they wash things clean and foul, dung, urine, spittle, pus and blood, Yet for all that, the water is not filled with horror, loathing, or disgust. Even so, Lord, like water, I abide with mind, large, abundant, measureless, feeling no hatred nor ill will. True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer whom he had offended. Lord, just as fire burns things clean and foul, dung, urine, spittle, pus and blood, yet for all that the fire is not filled with horror, loathing or disgust. Even so, Lord, like fire, I abide with mind, large, abundant, measureless, feeling no hatred nor ill will. True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer whom he had offended. Lord, just as the wind blows on things clean and foul, dung, urine, spittle, pus and blood, yet for all that the wind is not filled with horror, loathing or disgust. Even so, Lord, like the wind, I abide with mind, large, abundant, measureless, feeling no hatred nor ill will. True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer whom he had offended. Lord, just as a duster wipes up things clean and foul, dung, urine, spittle, pus and blood, yet for all that the duster is not filled with horror, loathing or disgust. Even so, Lord, like a duster, I abide with mind, large, abundant, measureless, feeling no hatred nor ill will. True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer whom he had offended. Lord, just as a boy or girl of the scavenger class, clad in rags, with begging tray in hand, on entering village or town, assumes a humble mien, and then goes in. Even so, Lord, like a scavenger boy, I abide with mind, large, abundant, measureless, feeling no hatred nor ill will. True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer whom he had offended. Lord, just as a bull with cut horns, mild, well-tamed, well-trained, roaming from street to street, from crossroad to crossroad, harms nothing with its feet or horns. Even so, Lord, like a bull with cut horns, I abide with mind, large, abundant, measureless, feeling no hatred nor ill will. True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer whom he had offended. Lord, just as a woman, man or a lad, having washed the head and dressed up, would be filled with horror, loathing and disgust if the carcass of a snake, dog or human being were slung around his neck. Even so, Lord, I am filled with horror, loathing and disgust at this foul body of mine. True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer whom he had offended. Lord, just as a man might carry around a bowl of fat, full of holes and slits, oozing, dripping, even so, Lord, I carry around this body of mine, full of holes and slits, oozing, dripping. True it is, Lord, that he in whom mindfulness of the body's actions is not present might set out on a journey without asking pardon of a fellow wayfarer in the holy life whom he had offended. Then that monk got up from his seat, arranged his upper robe over one shoulder, and fell at the feet of the Exalted One, exclaiming, Lord, transgression has overtaken me, as a fool, a blind man, an evil man. I have accused the Venerable Sariputta untruly, vainly, lyingly. Lord, let the Exalted One pardon this transgression of mine as a transgression to the end that I may restrain myself in the future. And the Buddha said, "Verily, monk, transgression has overtaken you. As a fool, as a blind man, as an evil man, you have accused the Venerable Sariputta untruly, vainly, lyingly. But since you have seen the transgression as such and recognized it as such, we pardon you. Verily, monk, there is growth in the discipline of the Aryan for him who, seeing and recognizing his transgression as such, makes amends to the end that he may be restrained in the future." Then the Exalted One said to the Venerable Sariputta, "Pardon this foolish man, Sariputta, before his head splits into 7 pieces, even where he stands." And the Venerable Sariputta said, "Lord, I do pardon that Venerable One, if he speak thus to me, and let him too pardon me." That's the end of the sutta. So you see, this sutta is quite a moving sutta. This stupid monk he was probably filled with jealousy that Sariputta was so famous and so well respected that he simply blamed the Venerable Sariputta for something that he had not done. So Sariputta here is giving his lion's roar. He's saying that just like earth, water, fire and wind, he abides, feeling no hatred, even though you cast dirty things like dung, urine, spittle, pus and blood. If you throw this on the earth, water, fire and wind, it does not react, it is not filled with horror or loathing or disgust. So the Venerable Sariputta, because he is an Arahant, he has no self, he's just like the 4 elements. And the simile here is like the dung, urine, spittle, pus and blood is like all the wrong accusations, all the unwholesome things that you say about him. He does not feel hatred, he does not react. And also he says that he's like a duster that sweeps the road or something. Does not react even though he sweeps all the dirty things, or like a boy or a girl of the scavenger class with begging for his food. When he goes into the town, he assumes a humble demeanor, a humble face, and then goes in. So even then, Sariputta is like that, or like a bull with the horns cut. A bull with horns is very fierce, but without the horns, it can do nothing, so it's very tame. So in the same way, the ego has been removed from the Arahant, and he is completely tame, he cannot harm anybody. And then lastly he says, he looks upon his body with horror, just like a carcass or a bowl of fat with holes and slits oozing and dripping. So after all this description, the monk realized that this person is really an Arahant, and he asked for forgiveness. And Buddha asked Sariputta to forgive him, but Sariputta said he will forgive him if the monk asks him. It's because the monk actually should ask the Venerable Sariputta for forgiveness, not the Buddha. So in the same way, sometimes people read that if you accuse a monk wrongly, or you have a lot of hatred towards a monk, you have to be very careful, because if a monk is an Arya, like the Venerable Sariputta, then your offense is very, very great. Your karmic offense is very great. And the Buddha said, you are digging a hole to bury yourself, in the earlier sutta that we read. That's why generally it is not wise for a lay person to be critical of a monk, especially one who keeps the precepts and understands the Dhamma. We were at Sutta number 9.2.12. Once when the Exalted One was staying near Savatthi at Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's park, the Venerable Sariputta before noon dressed, and with bowl and robe went towards Savatthi. Then thought he, too early is it Too early is it yet to go about for alms in Savatthi. Suppose I were to go and visit the park of the wanderers of other views. So the Venerable Sariputta went to their park, and after exchanging with them the usual compliments, sat down at one side. Now at that time this happened to be the topic of their talk as they sat gathered around. All who die with some attached remainder are not altogether freed from hell, rebirth in the womb of an animal, the realm of ghosts, nor from the untoward way, the ill way, the abyss hell. And the Venerable Sariputta neither applauded nor disparaged their speech, but without comment rose from his seat and departed, saying to himself, I will learn the truth of the matter from the Exalted One. So the Venerable Sariputta, after going about for alms in Savatthi, when he had returned therefrom and eaten his meal, visited the Exalted One, and after saluting sat down at one side. So seated he told the Exalted One all that had taken place. The Buddha said, Sariputta, some of these wanderers of other views are fools and without understanding, but some will know of one who has attachment, he has some attached remainder, and some will know of one who has no attachment, he has none. Sariputta, there are these 9 persons who, when they die with some attached remainder, are altogether freed from hell, rebirth in the womb of an animal, the realm of ghosts. What 9? Consider, Sariputta, the person who is accomplished in the precepts, accomplished in concentration, but not in wisdom. He destroys the 5 lower fetters and becomes completely cool after an interval. This Sariputta is the first person who, dying with some attached remainder, is altogether freed from hell, rebirth in the womb of an animal, the realm of ghosts. Again, Sariputta, consider the person who is accomplished in the precepts, accomplished in concentration, but not in wisdom. He destroys the 5 lower fetters and becomes completely cool after lessening his period. Again, consider the person who is accomplished in the precepts, accomplished in concentration, but not in wisdom. He destroys the 5 lower fetters and becomes completely cool without exertion. Again, Sariputta, consider the person who is accomplished in the precepts, accomplished in concentration but not in wisdom. He destroys the 5 lower fetters and becomes completely cool after some exertion. Again, Sariputta, consider the person who is accomplished in the precepts, accomplished in accomplished in concentration but not in wisdom. He destroys the 5 lower fetters and he ascends the stream of existence up to the Akanita heaven. This Sariputta is the 5th person who, dying with some attached remainder, is altogether freed from hell, rebirth in the womb of animal, the realm of ghosts. I stop here for a moment to comment. Here the Buddha is talking about 9 persons who die with some attached remainder. That means they have not attained arahanthood. Here the first 5 the Buddha is talking about is the anagamin, the non-returner. And the non-returner, there are 5 types. And we came across these 5 types earlier in this Anguttara Nikaya 7.6.52. And so I think we don't need to discuss them here. And this anagamin is one here, the Buddha says, is accomplished in the precepts, accomplished in concentration, but not in wisdom. In other words, he has perfect moral conduct, perfect concentration, that means one-pointedness of mind, but not perfect wisdom. And And the sutta continues, again Sariputta, consider the person who is accomplished in the precepts but not in concentration nor in wisdom. By destroying the three fetters and reducing lust, hatred and delusion, he becomes a once returner, Sakadagamin, who returns to this world once again, only once again, and makes an end of ill. This Sariputta is the sixth person. Again Sariputta, consider the person who is accomplished in the precepts but not in concentration nor in wisdom. By destroying the three fetters, he becomes one, germinating only once more, Eka Bijin. And on being born into the state of man just once, he makes an end of ill. This Sariputta is the seventh person. Again Sariputta, consider the person who is accomplished in the precepts, is moderately successful in concentration, is moderately successful in wisdom. By destroying the three fetters, he becomes a clan to clan goer, Kolan Kola, and running on, faring on through 2 or 3 clans, he makes an end of ill. This Sariputta is the eighth person. Again Sariputta, consider the person who is accomplished in the precepts and is moderately successful in concentration, moderately successful in wisdom. By destroying the three fetters, he becomes one who will be reborn 7 times at most, and running on, faring on among devas and men for 7 times at most, he makes an end of ill. This Sariputta is the ninth person who, dying with some attached remainder, is altogether freed from hell, from rebirth in the womb of an animal, from the realm of ghosts. Sariputta, some wanderers of other views are fools and without understanding, but some will know of one who has attachment. He has some attached remainder, and some will know of one who has no attachment. He has none. Verily, Sariputta, these 9 persons who die with some remainder are freed from hell, rebirth in the womb of an animal, the realm of ghosts. Not until now, Sariputta, has this Dhamma discourse been declared to monk or nun, to layman or laywoman, and why? Lest after hearing this Dhamma discourse, they bring on themselves the habit of idleness. Moreover, Sariputta, this Dhamma discourse was only declared by me because I am of my being questioned. That's the end of the sutta. So the last 4 types of persons discussed here. The first one is the Sakadagamin, once returner, who has perfect moral conduct, but not perfect concentration and wisdom. He destroys the 3 fetters and has reduced lust, hatred and delusion. And he returns to this world, that means as a human being, only once more. And then the other 3 are Sotapannas, stream enterers. They have all destroyed the 3 fetters. They are also perfect in moral conduct, but not in concentration and wisdom. And so here you can see that the Sotapanna and the Sakadagamin, they don't need perfect concentration. That means they don't need jhana, they don't need one-pointedness of mind. Now, the Sotapanna is reborn a maximum of 7 times only among devas and men. And the other thing mentioned here is that the Buddha said, some wanderers of other views are fools and without understanding, but some will know of one who has attachment, and some will know of one who has no attachment, which means that not all external ascetics are ignorant, some also know. And at the last part, the Buddha said, not until now, Sariputta, has this Dhamma discourse been declared to monk or nun, to layman or layperson, and why? Lest after hearing this Dhamma discourse, they bring on themselves the habit of idleness. So the Buddha here says that at first he did not want to talk about this sutta in detail, because here He's saying, for example, that Sotapanna and Sakadagami, first and second fruition persons, don't need jhana. And in the Majjhima Nikaya 43, the Buddha said that right view can be attained only by two conditions, with only two conditions. One is listening to the Dhamma, and the other one is having yoniso manasikara, proper attention. So you can see that Sotapanna can be attained by listening to the Dhamma only. And the Buddha did not want to say this because the Buddha doesn't want his Aryan disciples who are not yet Arahant to be idle. He wants them to finish their work in this very life. That's why the Buddha did not give the details of this sutta earlier.